It's time for the Old Hammers Chat Classic at the end of the season. It's time to reevaluate every single player and how we think they got on the previous 10, 11 months. Gonzo, how is oneself?
I'm all right. Thank you, mate. Enjoying the sunshine. How about you?
Yeah, not enjoying the sunshine. Too hot. I'm Scottish. Don't like it. The sun comes out. Body says no, thank you. It usually goes away after a couple of days, but it's sticking around for quite a while now.
It is. Yeah.
It's very humid. I do not like that either. Don't mind the sun if there's a little bit of a breeze.
You probably had some rain, though, up there. We've had no rain for, I don't know, we've had 2-3 weeks, isn't it?
Torrential downpours, but I do like it. I like it. I sit outside in it, actually, for like 2 minutes just to get soaked.
In your Speedos?
Well, yeah, I'm not going to get my clothes soaking on purpose, am I? That would just be silly. Yeah. Anyway, we've got the tier list ready to rock and roll. There it is in its glory. We're going to go through 11 players in this video, and then there'll be a second video on the forum channel with the other 11 players. We've got 5 categories. At the top, we've got top tier, those who have done fantastically well. Now, the one thing I will reiterate in these videos, the one thing we take into consideration a lot is expectation. What did we expect from this player at the start of the season? So if you think, hang on a minute, that player's in a low category, it's probably because we expected them to do that well anyway. Likewise, you see them down really low, you think that's a bit harsh. Well, it's because me and Gonzo had high hopes for that player and they haven't really hit the mark. Next category down, we've got good work, self-explanatory. They've done quite well. They've had a good season. Then we've got as expected. Then we've got tad disappointing, where you don't really want to be. And then the bottom one, we've got because, well, we don't really want to swear in the bottom bit. But that's where you've been rubbish. You've not been very good at all. You're in the bottom tier. We don't want to put players in there, but I'll be honest with you. I know there's at least one player going in there for me, Gonzo. There's one player that's really disappointing me this season.
I'd say.
We'll get on to him eventually. Anyway, Gonzo, are you ready to rock and roll?
I am. I'm looking forward to this. I feel a bit ruthless, actually.
Well, we've got Michail Antonio first. So where are you fancying putting him?
As expected, I think, Geo. As expected. I think he redeemed himself somewhat towards the end. I don't think it was a great goal-scoring season from Antonio. I think we saw his disappointment. I thought he told us. Absolutely, mate. And I think that was evident. I don't think he responded well to having competition for places at all. Maybe towards the end when Skamaka was injured and Ings was there, and he just knew Ings was not going to start ahead of him. That he was fine there. I don't feel we saw beast mode Antonio as much as I would have liked. Maybe, do you know, I'm actually going to downgrade him. I am actually going to downgrade him. I think it was a tad disappointing. I just when I was saying it then, I think I've talked myself out of it. I didn't see beast mode Antonio anywhere near enough. I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be interested to know how many games he played, and I wouldn't be surprised if, let's say, he played 40 games. I don't know. Let's play 40. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw beast mode Antonio in 8 of those. And I've completely fabricated those figures. I've made them up. I do understand that. But I think if you checked back, you wouldn't. I think you'd find he probably turned up in beast mode Antonio for a quarter of the games. I do think a lot of the time he's lacked support, though, because I think the team has not helped him at all this season. But you do factor that in. A tad disappointing.
Well, we're going to leave him in the middle category, Gonzo, as expected, because I was actually between as expected and good work, because at the start of the season, you basically got told you're benched, despite what you've done for the last 2 seasons, Michail, despite the fact we finished 6th and 7th, and you've been the main man, you've stayed fit, and the goals haven't always been there, but you've been pivotal to the way we play. Well, you're on the bench now because we've got a new shiny toy in Gianluca Skamaka. You're benched. And that's not going to be good for anybody's morale. That's a kick in the wotsits, that is. And he sat there, and at the first half of the season, we didn't see great reactions from him. I was disappointed because he did get his opportunities sometimes when European football would come round. One would sit out, the other one would come in or whatever. And Moyes was trying to rotate the two of them and give them both a decent amount of minutes. And the lack of reaction from Antonio was poor, in my opinion. I was hoping for a bit more. However, the second half of the season, I think he's played really, really well, and I've been really impressed by his attitude, actually, because in January he wanted out. He was twerking for the move. There's flashing your knickers, then there's just full on exposing yourself, and he would have been arrested for indecent exposure.
Funny enough, Geo, he actually did. I think Lucas Paqueta called it on camera. But there was no arrest pending, actually.
But what club do you think he was sending a message to with that?
He didn't look overly impressed. Maybe Hartlepool or so. I think if he'd have been talking about Wolves, you might have seen a different Antonio. I don't know what I've been talking about this.
Anyway, my point was he wanted out in January. He couldn't go because Scamacca was injured. Ings was getting injections. And there was a case of, oh, sorry, Michail, you can't have your wish because we need you to stay. And I was a bit worried coming out the January transfer window what Antonio we're going to see. And I've been impressed by him, actually. And if Antonio don't play, we don't play. He's our most important player. It shouldn't be the case, but he is. If we don't have Antonio in the starting 11, it can't work. The way that Moyes wants to play cannot work. Now, that doesn't mean he's had a fantastic season. I agree with you. He's not had enough goals. The beast mode Antonio, again, I can't disagree with you when you say 1 in 4 games. I think you're probably correct. I do think the majority of them came in a cluster in the second half of the season, whereas you didn't see it at all in the first half. But overall, I think you have to take his age into consideration as well. We should not be relying on him, but we are, and we have been able to in the second half of the season. I think he's had a good season, all in all, actually. I think he's been crucial to the way we want to play, but we'll meet in the middle, and we'll put him in the middle tier as expected. Now, next up, we got Nair for Gerd. I mean, this is a difficult one because he missed the first half of the season. But because it's the first half he missed, you feel like you've been watching him all season, whereas Scamacca missed the second half of the season, you don't feel like you've seen him at all. Do you know what I mean? Because it's recent memories. But where would you put a Gerd then?
I mean, it's really hard because he blows hot and cold, Geo. I think this is the thing. I think you're hovering as expected. And I think you might have to go there because I'm not sure I knew exactly what to expect. I think there is a context that has to be applied because of the price tag. Yeah. It was 35 million, something like that. And you expect him really good things. I think he built up an expectation level with his initial performances. Certainly in the Reading game, he got injured against Rangers, didn't he? We saw a Ranger long passing. When he got back into the team, I thought, wow, this is amazing. What an amazing player he is and looks, in many respects, perfectly suited to the Premier League. But as is the case with a lot of these very talented central defenders, I mean, the really talented ones that have got the pace, got the long passing, the ball control, the dribbling, all the stuff as well, they can have a tendency to switch off. And I think because we've seen absolute brilliance from him, an absolute dog turd as well, not quite an equal measure. I think he does appear to have 2 or 3 good games and an absolute howler. I'm going to go with as expected.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. I think it can be a Rolls Royce, it can be a Fiat Panda. You don't know what you're going to get. But I do think that person that made that comment saying Gerd only has bad games and Zuma's not there, essentially, it does ring true. I think it
was me that said that.
It definitely wasn't you. You just compared him to dog poo, and you've been speaking about Antonio getting turned on by wolves. It definitely was not you that came up with that.
Not an actual. I'm not talking about a canine like Wolf. Do you know what I mean? I'm talking about Wolverhampton Wanderers. I'm not suggesting.
Well, we knew what you meant until you said that, and now we're starting to question what you meant. Sometimes it's better to say nothing.
Absolutely. Well, it's better than liking pandas.
But Gerd, I think some games he's been brilliant, some games he's been really dodgy, but he did have a horrific injury in the first half of the season, wiped out the first half, and we always say it takes new signings, especially when they're new to the league, to get up to speed. Well, the second half of the season was almost, a part of that was almost his pre-season to some extent, because he missed that bit. We saw him at the World Cup, which was good, and he was probably one of the few players that did benefit from the World Cup coming round, and we benefited from Gerd going away there and getting it was almost like a quick rehab session for him. Like, let's get him in. Granted, he ended up getting injured at the World Cup as well, but he came back, fortunately, unscathed and stuff. I've been impressed. And do you know something? I'm looking forward to seeing him next season. I think next to Zuma's good, but also now Kerr's been playing really well at right centre-back as well. I feel like we've got adequate cover for Zuma. So when Zuma does break down, we've got someone that can come in. So, yeah, we'll leave him in as expected. I think that's an easy one to do, actually. Another one that's easy to do, Gonzo, is HelloFresh. Where are you putting HelloFresh this season?
It's top tier, Geo. It's absolutely top tier. HelloFresh. I've got to tell you now, with a HelloFresh, they've upped my cooking game. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I was
your cooking game.
Yeah, I was boring old beans on toast, to be honest. And then when the HelloFresh stuff started coming through, and we got this box of, well, it wasn't just fresh vegetables. It was everything. It was everything you needed for that recipe. I thought, hold on a second. I'm going to open this box. It told me how to do it. It told me what was in the box. It was all measured out for me, so I didn't have to weigh. And I'm not the brightest. Didn't have to weigh any stuff. And I started to get really adventurous with my cooking. And I've got to say, it really cut down on my wastage as well. I always had good ideas that I think, you know what, I'm going to cook this, that, and the other. I'll be in the supermarket. I fill the trolley up. A lot of that stuff would get thrown out. So what you do when you go to HelloFresh, you say, this is what I want to cook. This is my chosen recipe. This is how many people I'm cooking for. And they give you only the ingredients you need. And it says HelloFresh. I'll tell you something, they're not lying. It is fresh.
And they do say hello as well.
They do.
I get excited going on to order it. You get the recipes. You've got a wide range of recipes. And it's stuff I've never heard of before, but it sounds bloody good. I'm like, I'm going to try a little bit of that. And I'm going to try a little bit of that. And the reason I'm inclined to try is because I know I'm going to like it. I know the recipe's good. I know the ingredients are good. So as long as I follow this simple step-by-step instructions, I can't really go wrong, to be honest with you.
No.
Just this week, I had the cheesy pork burgers from HelloFresh. Delicious, 10 out of 10. Homemade wedges, which now I only do homemade wedges. Even when I'm not using HelloFresh, I'm using HelloFresh's way of doing.
You keep the recipe card, don't you?
Yeah. So even when I'm in between HelloFreshes, I'm using the HelloFresh bit. But anyway, while they are top tier, the performance has been superb. We've got a top tier offer for you from HelloFresh, which is 60% off your first box, 25% off your next 2 boxes, plus free gifts. In order to grab your offer from Hamish Chat on HelloFresh, you can use the link below. There's a QR code on your screen right now. Just pick your phone up, go into your camera, point at the QR code and just tap it, and then it will take you directly to their website. Or you can use the code HFHammers on their website. 60% off your first box, 25% off your next 2, plus free gifts as well. Thank you very much to HelloFresh for supporting Hamish Chat and this tier list video. Right, Gonzo, from food to players. We've got Areola.
Oh dear.
I reckon he's got to go good work. I think it's nailed on, actually. And let me tell you why. He can't go top tier because he's not dislodged Fabianski. So I don't think you can put him in the top one. However, he's done absolutely nothing wrong. He's made one error for a goal, but apart from that, I don't think he's done anything wrong. The penalty shootout against Blackburn as well, maybe. But in terms of what we expected from him, I think this is what we expected. We expected a top cup goalkeeper, and we've got a top cup goalkeeper. I think he's nailed on for that tier, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it is a tough one because it's the whole Premier League Fabianski situation, but he's our most successful goalkeeper in the last 40 years. So that's undisputed, and he is that. And I think it goes back to when we were at the game last season. As I know it's last season, Matt pulled off that wonderful save against Sevilla. Really, really wonderful save right in front of us, wasn't it? And he has established himself as a top goalkeeper anyway, but a really successful one. And I don't overly blame him for not securing his place in the Premier League. I thought there were games when Fabianski didn't perform brilliantly, but Areola wasn't given a chance. He still kept the shirt. So I didn't think it was 50-50 in contention for that Premier League. But I'd also suggest maybe that was the other way as well. It wasn't 50-50 for contention in the cup to be the cup goalkeeper as well. But I mean, you can't suggest anything other. Bear in mind, he didn't play in the league, and the league was where we were crap. This season, we were crap in the league, good in the cup. He was a cup goalkeeper. He's done really well.
All right, then. On to the first juicy one, possibly. Said Benrahma.
It's good work. It's good work. He's got David Moyes' trust. That's the person. He became the guy. He became the go-to guy. He's seen off Fornals. He's seen off Maxwell Cornet, which was like he'd say seen off Maxwell Cornet. Nobody had seen Maxwell Cornet, so he weren't hard to see off, really, was he?
Maybe Benrahma was the one that convinced him to go to France for his rehab.
Go on, mate. Bought him the ticket. Maxwell's phoning up saying his ticket is not returned. That's how he speaks. Yeah, and he's done that. and I felt he brought some variation to his game in terms of there were times when the fullbacks didn't know whether he was going to go wide. He'd started to cross with his left foot. Sometimes he'd cut in. I think he's tame. Sometimes if he's shooting, the irony is he won the most ferocious shot in the Premier League. But normally they just sort of trickle or they just go sort of floating over. But he did so much good work, and the good work far outweighs the bad. Established in place, got his place in the team, and he has. It's not there yet because you don't know it yet because we don't have the benefit of time. But when you look back and you think of Vazte or whoever you might think of as a West Ham hero that comes up in that pivotal, crucial moment, Said Benrahma's that guy. It just we don't have the benefit of time yet to look back and reflect back. But he has created a moment that's going to be looked at forever. And I think for that reason, to hold his nerve in front of all those people in such a big event, fair play to me. So I'm not going to go top tier because I do think there were dips this season, but good work, definitely.
I completely agree with you, actually. In the first half of the season, he was a very rare shining light. There wasn't much to enjoy in the first half, and he was one of the players that actually stepped up to the plate. And if there was like a Hammer of the Year for the first bit between the start and the World Cup, I think he would have probably won it, actually, and I think he would have deserved to. The second half, other players stepped up their game a little bit as well, and he, like you said, we saw that inconsistency come through. However, he's become very, very reliable from the spot, which is, we went through a period of uncertainty post-Noble where Rice was missing, Antonio was missing, and we don't have a penalty taker anymore. We've got one now inside Benrahma. And when that penalty was given in the final, I knew he'd score because he's showing that he's got like ice cold blood when it comes to taking a pen. And even though all this commotion goes on at penalties and VAR checks and stuff, you can see him just zoned out from everything. He doesn't get involved in everything. He just takes himself away, just calms down and dispatches the penalty. And he's turning into be a real trusted ally of David Moyes. I think he's had a really good season. Needs more goals from open play. That's my one criticism of him. For somebody with that much minutes, he hasn't scored that much goals, but he still had a good season nonetheless. I think that tier that you've put him in is an obvious one, Gonzo. Jarrod Bowen, though,
I was going to have to say the same.
No. You can't put him in good. No, he was crap for the first half. He was dreadful, Gonzo. Like, he was really stinky. The second half, he's had some good games. But I'll tell you what, he's had some poor games in the second half of the season as well. He's got better. And I know he scored that goal in the final, but you can't just bump him up 2 or 3 tiers because of that goal in the final as much as you want to.
I'm bumping him up 1 tier.
Well, I think he should. I think
it's a good work.
I think he's been disappointing.
Oh, dear.
Because, well, my expectation of Jarrod Bowen at start. Well, actually, what was your expectation for Jarrod Bowen? Start the season, and I said to you, "What do you think Bowen's going? What do you expect from Bowen this season? What would you say?"
I didn't know what to expect from Scamacca, so I think I probably would have expected Bowen to be there or thereabouts as top goal scorer. I probably would have hoped that Scamacca might have been 20 odd goals, but I wasn't to know. But I would have probably expected Bowen to be top goal scorer, being direct, being a threat. And swinging over his corners, really. I think that's probably what and being, one of our best players. I think that's what I would have expected.
Well, you kind of got that, I guess. But what I would have expected was Ham of the Year contender. Honestly, I expected him to push Declan Rice for Ham of the Year because I thought this guy, last season, I think he was our most important player. Bowen didn't play. I thought, how are we going to score? How are we going to get goals last season? This season, for a large part of it, I think you could have took Bowen out of the team to some extent. I don't think we would have missed him that much. And he was very fortunate to stay in the team as long as he did. And he's very lucky that he's got Moyes' backing, because a lot of other managers would have hooked him, especially in the first half. Now, I know what he said. It's the pressure of getting into the England squad has got to him. It probably did. But I expected him to be one of our best players this season, and he hasn't been. He's done okay. He's had some good games, but he's had a lot more bad games than good games. And he's the one player, the whole West Ham squad, I'm most disappointed in this season. It's not Scamacca. It's not Cornet. It's not Ben Johnson. It's not Kerr. It is actually Jarrod Bowen, because I think the ability of that lad is unbelievable. I expect him to be one of our best players every single game. Maybe that's on me for having such high expectations, but I'm not going to apologise for thinking a player is that good. We saw it last season. Every game last season, he was one of our best players, consistently turning up every single week. Every week he was getting a goal or an assist, and it was unbelievable. Now, I know he couldn't sustain that going forward. That's what makes players world class, those that have A, the ability, and B, the consistency. You need both to be in the upper echelons. Jarrod Bowen was displaying the consistency part last season. This season, we've not seen either. In fact, we have seen the consistency. It just wasn't very good. So I would actually put him in a bit disappointing, actually. But you're going to go the second one. So I think we're going to have to put him in as expected and meet in the middle somewhere.
Yeah. But that's fine.
I expect more from him next season, but this is the thing, Gonzo. I'm confident we'll see more from him next season.
Oh, for sure. Mate, he was making babies, 2 of them. He had to work twice as hard.
Maxwell Cornet.
Oh, brilliant. Awful. Get him, drop him down into there. I mean, just truly horrendous. Years ago, I went and worked for a toy company. I was selling magic tricks, right? And I joined them like 11 and a half months into their financial year. I got to the end, and then they basically had the staff do with all the companies. And the team that I joined had won the most sales over the year. I was only there for 2.5 weeks. And come along and all the rest of it. I was like, I don't think I can, really. I can't claim any I've only just finished me training manuscripts and all. I've done nothing. I have done nothing. I remember I went along there and I sort of kept my head down. I was quite sheepish, had a meal, and it was a hotel in Heathrow, actually, and everyone got drunk. I don't get me wrong, I got drunk, but even a bit anyway, they all got called up on the stage, and I'm gonna stay there. I just felt like an imposter, right? Oh, Cornet, he was there. Hey, on the bus. I'm not saying he shouldn't enjoy himself, right? And I'm not saying he's not part of the squad, but he was living his best life, really, and celebrating like he was like a pivotal point in that squad. He's not been part of the squad. He's been a failure of a signing.
Most assists in the Europa Conference League.
Did he really? Did he really?
Yeah, no wonder he's celebrating, because he provided the most assists in the competition for us. Sure, he should celebrate.
Oh, mate, maybe should, but maybe I'm being a bit mean. I just think he's been an abstract failure, really, and I think he's been a waste of money.
He's been injured.
Are you winding me up or what?
No,
you're not winding me. You're not winding. Okay, all right. Come on, you got to. He had a mosquito bit his calf muscle or something, right? I don't know. He went off to France, and then to get treatment for it. He came back, and I think there's some blame lies with Moyes here. Let me just say that, because I think by that point he'd lost Moyes' trust. I spoke about earlier about Benrahma got Moyes' trust. Cornet lost Moyes' trust, but my word, right? When he did come back, and he did eventually, Moyes said, you know what, I'm going to give him some time here. I mean, he kept on fluffing his chances. He was offside. He was useless. He was absolutely awful. And I think if you're going to bump him up in this tier list, I'm looking forward to hearing your reasoning why you're gonna do it.
If I was going to bump him up, it would be up to a tad disappointing, because I think it's a bit harsh to leave him in that category, but because you feel so strongly about it, I'm going to let you have it, right? I don't think he's been that bad because of the injury. I think the circumstances, it's unfair, but I have, even with the injury, I've still been disappointed by him, because I had out of all the summer signings, actually, he's probably the one I had most expectations for, because I thought, if this guy's racking up the goals for Burnley, which he was, I thought, and that's a Burnley side, what's he going to do for us? And I thought, he can play on the left, the right, you can play through the middle if he really had to. I thought, this is the perfect kind of signing for a club like West Ham with a European tournament, actually. Someone that can cover various positions. And in the group stages of the Conference League, we saw that. We saw him playing in different positions, and it was working. He was linking up well with Benrahma and Scamacca. Yeah. And then when we played Wolves, we saw it in the Premier League, and then he got injured in that game, and then he's just sort of disappeared since then. And there's always small moments of what ifs with footballers' careers. And my biggest one for Cornet is Stamford Bridge. What if that goal actually stood? What if he was able to get that confidence boost and maybe some more minutes off the back of it, kind of thing? I actually hope he doesn't leave this summer. I know he's been touted as possibly being sold. A lot of people want to see him sold. I still think he's a really good player. It's just he needs to learn the bloody offside rule. But I'll tell you what, though, that run by Bowen in the final, Cornet's been making them all season. The problem is nobody's ever given it to him as quick as what Paqueta gave it to Jarrod Bowen. Usually, he's a yard away, then he gets the ball and he's offside. I still think there's a good player in Cornet. However, we're reevaluating what we've just seen, and I can't really say that he deserves to be in as expected. He was a lot worse than expected. So I'll let you have where you put him, which is in the M category. You can stay in there. Vladimir Coufal, somebody that was heading for the M category before the World Cup, but he's lofted himself a little bit.
I think he would have been heading for tad disappointing, actually. But I do think he's definitely picked it up. There's not been enough to say good work, I think, at the end. I think he redeemed himself for the last 2 months of the season, and I think he was excellent for those last 2 months of the season. But does that erase what was going on? There was a point where David Moyes was almost trying to play anyone else but Coufal there, and it really took a terrible performance from Tilo Kehrer, followed by a terrible performance by Ben Johnson. I think for Moyes, probably I won't sell you.
It's funny how football works, isn't it? If Kehrer or Johnson played well, there's a good chance Coufal would have left in January.
I bet football is littered with those stories, littered with them. That last substitute appearance or whatever, that timely goal or whatever the case may be. Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. But he was pretty poor. But when he came back, I thought he was back to sort of original Coufal that we got when he first actually first 3 or 4 games he first joined, he was right wing back. As soon as Moyes reverted back to a back four, you saw a very, very good player, and I think that's what we got. So I think he balanced it out, and he clearly redeemed himself at the end. So many of them did.
Yeah, I agree with that category, but not really for the way it's titled. It's titled as expected. It wasn't what I expected because it was so bad and then so good. But he sort of meets in the middle, so we'll leave him in there. But it's a season of 2 halves for Vladimir Coufal. I think I completely agree with everything you said. Really, if he left in January, I actually was in favour of the sale at the time. I thought, well, it makes sense. He's only got 6 months to go on his contract. He's been rubbish. Get a few million quid for him. We bought him for 5-6 million. It was selling for 3 million. We've had the best of Coufal, and it's only cost us 3 million. That's good business, that is. There's obviously the asterisk, which is only if we bring in a replacement. But I wouldn't have been fussed if Coufal left. But now, with the benefit of hindsight and what's happened, of course, I'm glad we didn't sell him. I'm glad he got to win the cup in Prague as well. He's one player I'm a little bit nervous about for next season, if I'm honest with you. I'm thinking, well, I hope we see the last 6 months because we could just as well see the first 6 months of Coufal. We don't know. I think we are taking a gamble not buying any fullbacks this summer. But in regards to Coufal's previous 10 months, yeah, Gonzo, in at as expected. Aaron Caswell.
Hello, Fresh have disappeared from the top tier.
Yeah, I've taken them out because...
Oh, dear. Are we dealing with Cresswell?
Yeah, HelloFresh is here because after HelloFresh, we've got Ashby, Vlasic, a duplicate of Bona, Masuaku, Coventry, Randolph, and Dawson, who we're not evaluating.
You can't have too many Ogbonas, mate.
That's my break point, so I know who not to pick up.
I like it. Yeah, like a little divider. Cresswell, still got great hair, hasn't he? Cresswell. How's he managing that? Anyway, I'm going to go with... Is that right? Is it? I'm going to go with as expected, I think. Because like a lot of them, and it says a lot for the team, the first part was pretty poor. As I remember it, we brought Emerson in. Emerson didn't look too good. Then Cresswell came in. I thought we weren't performing well. Cresswell didn't perform particularly well. Then Emerson came back in and actually performed a little bit better. And we thought, actually, this guy might be all right. Then David Moyes realised he was getting in a bit of a pickle and he was down the bottom of the Premier League and he brought a lot of his old players back in, and Cresswell was one of them. And I think from that point, Cresswell was really, really good, and you didn't feel like you were looking at an old player or anything like that. I also think he gets so much credit for the way he joined in with the celebrations. And I know that might sound a contradictory to what I said about Cornet, but there really is no comparison between Aaron Cresswell at West Ham and Maxwell Cornet. Well, one of them, should be earning a testimonial. The other one probably shouldn't have been signed. But I think, I was so pleased for him, and so pleased. That's a real, to see the way he embraced Emerson, his direct counterpart that's a real
leadership.
It's leadership. It's a generosity in spirit. It's wonderful, wonderful to see. I think there was an exorcism for him in that. I think there would have been so much guilt that he would have had 12 months prior to that. Everyone would have gone into that dressing room after he's sending off against Frankfurt and said, "Don't worry, Cressy, it's not your fault. It's not your fault." He would have heard the words, but he would have also known it was his fault. And it's just people trying to be nice. And that would have weighed heavily on his shoulders. I have cost this club and these players around me the chance to win a trophy. With that trophy, that burden is lifted. I no longer has to carry that around with him. So I think there was a relief, and there's a generosity in that relief, because that's a relief that you're no longer letting everyone else down, which is a nice thing because you're thinking of others. I think, and I think his form towards the end, he was really good. There's no surprise that our set pieces improved when Cresswell was back in the team as well. I know Bowen takes them as well, but so I think he repaired it. So I'm going to go with as expected.
I'd have put him in the good category, but I'm also aware that I'm a big fan of Cresswell, so I'm probably biased towards him. And it's not because I'm a fat Aaron Cresswell; it's just because I really like him.
Hey, you're just a fat Aaron Cresswell.
Yeah, I still don't mind that at all. I'm living. It's on my CV, mate. It's fine. It's good. He's getting on. He shouldn't really be at the club any longer. It should be at the point where we're saying thank you very much. But he's still here, and he's here on merit, and he deserves to be here because of his performances, despite his age. I think he's been a terrific servant, and we spent 30 million on Emerson. It felt like a bit of a mess signing, but the point is that should have been Cresswell out the team for the rest of the season. Emerson should have had that spot. Cresswell won his shirt back. He came back into the side, put Emerson on the bench, and he put in some big and good performances as well. I don't really remember Cresswell having bad games, plural. He might have had one or two at most, and that was it. I think Cresswell's been quite consistent this season. No, again, that doesn't mean he's been magnificent. It's not necessarily 8 or 9 out of 10s every week, but 6s and 7s every week. Just steady Eddie all season, really reliable. Like you said, best set piece taker at the club. I think he's had a really good season, and you have to take into context and consideration that he shouldn't have been. He's probably played more games than he expected to this year. He probably, that's it. Emerson's here. I'm now going to get my cigar. I'm going to sit on the bench and I'm going to ease into it. I'm going to do what Martin Noble did the last 2 years, play here and there, and I'm just going to ease off into retirement eventually. And he's been called upon, saying, "Sorry, mate, the left back's not quite worked out. You're back into the team." And, semi-final comes round. "Oh, Cresswell, you're back." "Oh, whoa, Gaffer, what?" But he's done really well. But I'll leave him in, as expected, to remove the Geo bias. We have Flynn Downs.
I think it's a tad disappointing, Geo.
Yeah.
And I say that by, not all of it's his fault. Some of it's by his standards. I think when I first saw him, I thought, wow, we've really got a player here. I think it was for him to get back-to-back man of the matches and then not get a little run in the team. I felt a little bit sorry for him. You talked about earlier, what if Cornet had scored against Chelsea? I think there's a couple of what ifs for Flynn Downs when he was really flying high. And then when he did get played in the first team, one of them against Liverpool, one against Man United, both out of position. Okay, can we not give him a game against one of the lesser teams like Tottenham or something? Do you know what I mean? I think,
very good.
Yeah, I got more. He's that being said, I think towards the end, when he did get his chance, he didn't stamp his authority fully on the game. There's a little bit of something going on there between him and Moyes. I wouldn't blame Downs if he wanted to leave. He's not 21 anymore, whatever he is. Might be 23, 24, something like that. he needs to be playing first team football. Next season, whether it's at West Ham or somewhere else, he needs to be playing 30 plus games. I think that's really important for his development. So I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to leave. But I do think he's a really good player. I mean, a really good player. And I think he's got a good Premier League career ahead of him. He's not one of these players I think, okay, he'll do all right in the Championship. He'll drop down there. I think he could be a Premier League player. I really do. Whether it's with us, I don't know. But I think ultimately, I've been a bit tad disappointed because I thought he was going to break into the first team. There have been times, so I should say this, when Souček was awful this season, and Down should have been playing and he wasn't given the opportunity. But I'm still going to go with tad disappointing.
I'll leave him there. I would have put him in as expected, but I'll leave him in tad disappointing because I get your point. I can't really argue against it. The only reason I would have put him in as expected is because when we bought him, I thought, oh, well, we've got a squad player. Let's cover for the centre midfield area, in particular the defensive midfield position. And that's what we've got. Flynn Downs' biggest problem is his main competition to starting isn't Thomas Souček. Flynn Downs isn't a replacement for Thomas Souček. Flynn Downs is a replacement for Declan Rice. And unfortunately for Flynn, Declan Rice just doesn't get injured. He's available every single. There's no opportunity. If you're Danny Ings at West Ham next season, you know you're going to get games because eventually Antonio will pick up a knock and miss a few games. He will. If you're Thilo Kehrer, you know you're going to get games next season because Kurt Zouma will get injured. No. Flynn Downs never really had that this season because he's probably looking at Declan going, this guy is just an animal. Even when we were in the final of the Conference League, Declan Rice still played against Leicester City. Does this guy just not ever play football? No, he's constantly playing. He wants to. Declan always wants to play football. And he was the one that was stopping Downs getting more minutes. Not the same next season, so it'll be interesting to see how we do it. But from what I've just seen, is completely as I thought we were buying from Swansea City. But I get your point. I can't argue against it. So he's going to stay in tad disappointing. And do you know something? I'd like to think Flynn Downs would put himself in tad disappointing because I'd actually be worried if somebody with that sort of little football come along and said, yeah, that's what I expected. I'm happy with it. Pop me in there, mate. I actually rather he was a little bit annoyed at his lack of game time. Lucas Fabianski, though. Actually, I'll let you go. It's got to be one of the top two, surely.
I think it's it's not top tier, but it is good work. It defies age, doesn't he? Really, and any time he has had a poor performance, he seems to back it up and come back. And there's been a number of game-winning saves this season. We've already discussed the mistakes, which he holds his hand up to. But we often remember the game-winning goals. We don't often remember the game-winning saves. I'm struggling to think of one now, but I know there were because I wrote them down in my book. I just couldn't, without looking at the book, tell you what games they were. Games with that last-minute save made the difference, and we got the points. He doesn't look like an old goalkeeper. He looks like a Premier League goalkeeper, and he's kept a very good goalkeeper out the team all season. So well done, Lucas Fabianski.
I think this is the one when we do these videos and we're doing our little tier now and again. When you're doing it, you think, I think a lot of our subscribers will disagree with this. I think Fabianski might be that one, but I agree. I think he's had a really, really good season. I think he's been worthy of the number one shirt for 90%. Areola should have had more of a crack. But you just aren't in football. You're just not as ruthless with a goalkeeper as you are with other positions. Your right back has one bad game. It's like right dropping for the next one, and that's almost like universally accepted to some extent. Whereas with a keeper, you tend to give him you give him the next game to redeem himself. And Fabianski, I don't recall him having two bad games in a row. I don't really remember. It's not just this season. It's since he's joined as well. He's been really reliable. You know, Martin Noble gave us a bit of an insight this season about how calm Fabianski is and how much it helps everyone, which, I'll tell you what, when you see the footage of them celebrating, he's definitely not calm, Fabianski. He's somebody that actually, when you see all the partying and stuff, he's the one that surprises me because he's going full throttle, he is. Yeah, he's proper bouncing around, shouting all the songs. Even the Bowen song, he's the one that's there going at it. Wow, I didn't expect that from him. Top keeper, top professional. And we're going to need as many of our voices next season because we're waiting to lose our captain for the second summer in a row. And actually having Fabianski here next season might not be a bad thing. But yeah, I'll leave Fabianski in there. Completely agree with yourself, Gonzo. And last one for this video, we've got Pablo Fornals.
Oh my word!
I know. Gonzo, like, we cannot put him. He's got to go. Tad disappointing.
Yeah, okay.
He has to. I think it's a no-brainer. We can't get all romantic because of his goal. Yeah, we can't do it. Yes, he has a great goal.
Gooey-eyed, misty-eyed, whatever, summit. Yeah.
Gooey. Great goal against Bournemouth. Fantastic moment against Alkmaar. Fantastic goal against Leicester City. But we can't just start bumping up the tiers because of what he did in the last 3 games, and one of them was meaningless.
It's true. It is true.
We can. He started the season as our first choice left winger, arguably, and at one point Cornet was ahead of him in the pecking order as well. He wasn't even our second choice left winger, and I'd argue that he remains second choice left winger because of Cornet rather than because of Fornals, and that's not necessarily a good thing. And I have been disappointed by him. It's not all on him, though. I do think he's been, say, harshly managed, mismanaged. I don't know if that's the right phrases here. But I do feel a bit sorry for him. I do feel like he's been almost like I get the vibe of he's been punished for something, but there's nothing to punish him for almost.
No. Having a baby.
Well, that's definitely not something to punish someone for. But
well, man.
Anyway, Gonzo, would you agree with a bit disappointing?
I am. Yes, I would agree. It's hard because we love him. That's the trouble. And in fact, you know what, I can see what we've got, and you know what, on our Patreon we've got the Anton Ferdinand podcast. I'm seeing a future. I'm seeing into the future. Seeing a Pablo Fornals podcast once he's retired. We love him. We love Fornals. We really do. There you go. You heard it here first. Future Hammers Chat Patreon podcaster. And everyone's delighted when he redeems himself in that sense. And everyone wants him. There's immense goodwill for Fornals. Everyone willing him to do well, wants him to do well. So everyone knows what a bloody great geezer he is. But he's not played football brilliantly this season. And that's ultimately what we're deciding in the tier list. I hope next season he can put that all behind him, really, and start fresh, He's had a lot of upheaval. He's a new baby, moved house, getting married. Hopefully, he can just start fresh. Okay, now he'd be sort of into his stride, and hopefully play a little bit more in positions where it gets the best out of him.
Well, there you go. That's it for episode 1. Episode 2 will include the players we have not discussed, such as Declan Rice, Gianluca Scamacca, Thomas Soucek, Tilo Kehrer. There's lots of juicy ones coming up. But if you want it now, it'll be on your screen in about 5 seconds' time. But if you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it. Subscribe to Hammers Chat, myself and Gonzo. Well, we'll catch you on another tier list.